This week on the Men at the Movies podcast, we wrap up our unintentional series on the heart of a warrior with Man on Fire. We find that being a professional, just doing our job from a sense of duty and obligation, will eventually turn us into the villain. Thankfully, love has the power to transform lives and heal broken hearts. Love shows us how to live again. Don't be a sad bear, but let's discover God's truth in this movie.
The movies and stories we love are gateways to see ourselves and God in new ways.
Every great story borrows its power from a larger story, the story that's written on our hearts and woven into the fabric of our very being.
Hello and welcome to the Men at the Movies podcast. My name is Paul McDonald, and joining me via another weird software workaround that's not the Zoom is Britt Mooney. Hey man, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm running a little ragged today. I've been running around a lot for some reason. I mean, I know why. It's my fault mostly. You agree to things and you have kids and you're running errands and stuff. So, but all in all, man, I'm doing pretty awesome. God is good and good.
I've seen this clip on Instagram where it plays like the desolate Star Wars music. Do, 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 do. And it shows the dad looking off in the distance. And he's like me pondering the consequences of the choices I've made. And the choices are his kids sitting behind him, like eating glue or something.
Yeah. There are those days.
That's how you were feeling coming in today, huh?
You kind of have those days. I never regret having kids. It's just, you got to take the good with the bad and take them both. And there you have the facts of life. No, you have to remember to be thankful for things in the midst of, your kids are going to act like boneheads sometimes. And they're going to get sick.
Yes.
And that's going to, but in the grand scheme of things, it's, kids are a blessing, and you just got to remember that.
That's an interesting opening,
right?
Because of kind of where we're heading with this topic of this movie for Man on Fire. And that whole idea of father, child, kind of the more like an archetype.
Yeah.
As we dive into this movie. But before we really dive into the nitty gritty, the details, because as you texted me as you were watching this, man, this movie's brutal, but I love it.
Yeah, it gets brutal. It doesn't necessarily start out brutal. I mean, it's a little dark in the beginning, but yeah, when he kind of turns it on, man, it gets brutal.
Yeah. So when you look at this movie, critically, not super great. Rotten Tomatoes gives it like a 39%.
That's ridiculous.
It is. But you talk to just about anybody who's seen this movie, like they love this movie. And obviously you said you love this movie.
Yeah.
So Britt, going back to our roots, why did we pick this movie?
Well, I think I messaged you at some point or texted you, and I was like, I've just been feeling like I need to watch this movie again, like Man on Fire. It'd been a while. There's something redemptive about this movie, and there's something that has kind of a real heart to it. It's also a brutal action movie, and not most guys, but there are a lot of guys who do like those movies. But the context of the brutality has at its core something good. And the wrestling that this guy is going through, as extreme as it is, I think to me has a very redemptive sort of sense to it. And it's something that you kind of notice in a lot of Denzel Washington movies. He picks a lot of movies like this. He picks a lot of roles like this where he is kind of diving into a very redemptive theme. And as dark as the movie might be, Denzel is not afraid to have a movie where he talks very positively about the Bible. I mean, the Book of Eli, notably, right?
Right.
But I mean, like he does it often, where where he speaks positively about the scripture and faith and God and all of that. So I think it's in the movie without it being, it's not about getting saved, right? But that sort of the idea of a greater good is a big part of it. And I think it's why a lot of guys like it too. I think we're attracted to that idea that there's a greater good, than there's something unseen. There's something bigger than us. Like, I think a lot of those reasons I like it, and think a lot of guys do too.
And we sort of talked about one of these instances where you were dealing with somebody in your church, and they were coming to you wrestling with an issue.
Right.
But they said, put the Bible aside. I want to know what you think. And it's good to wrestle with issues, right? I mean, Jacob wrestled with God. We wrestle with things because it's hard. We don't always know what God's doing. But as you said, if I have to take the Bible out of the equation, we can't have a conversation, because that's sort of our basis. That's our grounding. And so I think a movie like this is good because we do wrestle with some bigger, I mean, there are some bigger themes here. We're not approving of vigilantism, or we're not trying to raise an insurrection or anything.
Nope.
But about standing up for what's right, what you believe in, and what you love as a guiding principle. I think is a concept that we are going to deal with today as we sort of break down this movie.
Yeah. I think a lot of guys can relate on some level. It's not as extreme. In movies, they're extreme because they're telling a story, right? But the conflict is between doing something because I'm good at it and it's a job that makes me a lot of money or gets me something out of it. That doesn't last long for men. Like the end of that is evil. I don't care what the job is. I don't care how good you are at it. If there's not a higher purpose and a greater purpose, more personal purpose involved in what you're doing and why, then it feels very, very empty. Like every VH1 behind the music, like I keep talking about, except for one, like, you know, there's a lot of men and the very cliche is, you know, I climbed the ladder and got to the top and realized it was leaning up against the wrong wall. Like my goal, my ultimate goal was wrong. It was misguided. And I think a lot of guys try to find their identity like I think had in his past, in doing something really well. I'm really good at this. I'm really good at this. And then at some point realizing, man, I stepped on a lot of people. I screwed over a lot of people. I didn't care about people the way I should have. You know, you get later in life and you start to realize, like, man, I was kind of, you know, that I haven't become a good person, you know.
And the way you frame that is super cool, because he basically has a middle-age crisis.
He totally does.
I mean, he didn't go buy a Porsche or anything. He did what many other men did. He turned to drinking, and not just turned to drinking, but embraced his identity as a drunk.
Yeah.
It was super interesting that he's at his job interview. Why are you so cheap? Because I drink. You know, you're going to be driving my daughter around.
Right.
Maybe want to button that up a little bit. But what I love that concept that you just introduced, that middle-age crisis, because he spent his life in service of an organization, doing things that he was really good at
and trained for,
and you know, invested in, right. He was successful, but that he gets to this stage in life, probably in his 40s, maybe early 50s, where he says, you know, do you think God will forgive us for what we've done? You know, he's talking to Chris when Creasy's talking to Rayburn, Christopher Walken's character. And that may not be the biggest question, but do you think God will forgive us for what we've done? Because like you mentioned, like, how did you get to where you got? What have you done? What have you sacrificed? And I don't mean in a good way.
Yeah. Well, and I think an important part of that is we don't need to go a lot into the relationship, but I think the relationship with the Christopher Walken character, Ray, is a huge part of this, because the Christopher Walken character is now married and has settled down. And at one point, Ray goes, I'll help you, but I won't kill anybody. I'm done with that. Like, he has found a higher purpose, and he has been transformed by this another relationship. So when he encounters Creasy at the beginning of the movie, he's like, no, really, how you doing? Like, he's pushing. I got a job for you. It's protecting a girl. Well, I don't, I'll have to talk to people, and, but he pushes him into this purpose-driven job, right? He pushes him into this because he was an assassin first, right? That's who he was. Yeah. He was an assassin, and you kind of see that he was good at it, and he was an assassin. But now he's saying, now be a bodyguard, right? And it's like, it seems less. It seems but I need money, right? But anyway, that whole relationship with Ray, as we see throughout the movie, is sort of that positive influence. And we need guys like that in our life who have like, look, man, you need to reshape how you're looking at this, because you're not happy. And it's because you need purpose. You need something real. You need something that grounds you in truth,
Again, doing a good job segueing where we're heading, because when they were younger, they had plans. We're going to take over the world. We're going to do this.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And in their conversation there in the little cafe, it's like, oh yeah, he called, and then he's like, hey, I'm out. Right. He's like, I can't do that. Right. He fell in love, and he got married, and she's got a family now. And the funny thing was, Creasy said, then I went there and I met her, and yeah, I get it now.
Right.
But he hadn't found that same magic, that same person, that same, the phrase that I think we're going to use a little bit is this idea of a true north.
Yeah.
Because we see that the after effects with Christopher Walken's character of the power of love to transform lives, to heal broken hearts, for redemption. And that's, I mean, I know that might be a stretch, but that seems sort of like a gospel message to me. And so in Christopher Walken's character, we see the after effects. We see the impact. Like you said, he's not a guy who's going to kill. He's like, I'm not going to kill anymore.
Right.
But I'm your buddy. I'm your pal. I'm your brother. I'll help you with it. I'll walk with you through it. I'll be there for you when you get shot up.
Yeah, because love gives hope. Love teaches you the value of all life, not just your own and not just another person's, and especially, as we'll get into, especially the purity of loving a child shows you the value of life. And no one has to be good enough to be loved or to be valued. And so therefore, yeah, I love that part of the movie. And, they give, by the way, they give Christopher Walken a nice little speech, I don't know, about halfway to 75% of the movie, somewhere in there. I love scripts that do this. It's like, I wonder, did they have the speech first and that's how they got Christopher Walken, or they got Christopher Walken and like, we got to give him a speech.
We have Christopher Walken. We have to do a better job.
But anyway, it's really cool. And then, but now we get to see John Kreese. John and Creasy is kind of his nickname. We get to see his journey through that.
So the big message, without going all 80s music, that we'll talk about today is the power of love. No, I'm not going to sing it today, Britt. Sorry. Not sorry. When you look at Creasy in the beginning, he is a broken man. He describes himself to the Madre as he says, I am the sheep that got lost.
Yeah.
He asks, like I mentioned, he said, will God forgive us for what we've done?
And he knows the Bible. He can quote,
Yeah.
Don't you love that about movies? These people who don't go to church, they can just quote the Bible, any verse.
Yeah.
They know it all. Anyway, go ahead.
Right. Because the whole thing was don't overcome evil with evil, but overcome evil with good.
Right.
And I'll go ahead and I guess and play that clip since we've just basically teed it up.
You have to get used to the roots. It won't happen again, I promise.
No offense, but I regret that your profession needs to exist.
So do I, Marjorie. So do I.
Do you ever see the hand of God in what you do?
No, not for a long time.
The Bible says, be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good.
Romanos capítulo 12, versículo 21. I'm the sheep that got lost, Marjorie.
And I think he knows the Bible, but it holds no power for him. He's like, yeah, I know that you don't overcome evil with evil, but I'm the sheep that got lost. To the point where he even takes his pistol one night and tries to shoot himself.
Right.
As I said, the bullet doesn't lie. And it was interesting to me. Have you seen the hand of God in your work? Not in a long time.
Mm.
And then he gets to this point where he's crushed. He's drinking. He feels worthless. He sees flashes of the trauma that he's inflicted, the wounds that he's inflicted on the world. And he decides to end it. But the bullet doesn't go off.
And who does he call?
Right. He calls his buddy Ray. And they're like, oh, no, the bullet doesn't lie. And you see the dimpling on the back of the cartridge. The primer hit it. The bullet just didn't go off. It just didn't fire. It's just interesting. She asks, do you see the hand of God? And then he actually sees the hand of God in his life. And I think that's what it takes sometimes. Because we want to give up much sooner than God wants to give up.
Mm.
And it takes the hand of God to prevent that from happening. And what we see with Creasy is he looks up and he sees PETA in the window as he's standing out in the rain, wondering what the hell just happened. And up to that point, he had pushed her away.
Yeah, good.
Like, I'm not your friend. I'm just your bodyguard. To the point she started the job sitting in the front seat. He's like, stop asking me questions. I'm here to protect you. That's it. And she went and sat in the back like she was a chauffeured little princess with no relationship. But I think it impacted Creasy more than it impacted her because of what she had written down the first day she met him.
Yeah.
Right. She saw him as a sad bear, a sad Creasy bear. And she wrote in her journal, I love you, Creasy bear. Like a billion times. Like, the weird girlfriend who, when after your first date, she writes down her name with your last name like 100 times with little heart bubbles. You're like, whoa, this is going too fast. What's going on here?
Well, here's the thing about kids. And kids have so many amazing things about them. But one of the reasons he's pushing her away is because she's asking too many questions. And kids can be insightful in ways that grown-ups can't. And that can be very frustrating for an adult because kids will ask a question that either you've never thought of or you just don't want to answer, right? And kids do it all the time. And it's important to have those discussions. And my mother was excellent because I was great at asking questions she did not want to answer about all sorts of things in life. But my mother leaned on God to be able to give me an answer that was appropriate for my age. So she was pushing. And so she had an insight about who he was. He seems sad or something like I don't know what it is, but he seems sad. And so she tries to have that relationship with him. And that's what she was looking for. And he just kept telling her back to his original flaw, which was this is just a job. He was trying to treat this like he had treated being an assassin. But being a bodyguard is different than an assassin. It's different. And so he was trying to just treat it like a job. This is just my job. It's just my job.
Which is interesting because throughout, as he's sort of going through his rampage,
sure.
What do the other guys keep telling him? I'm a professional.
I wrote that down.
Oh,
I know. No, that's so good, man.
Did I just steal your thunder?
No, not at all. I wrote that down because for him, it was no longer a job. He was not going after the bad guy because it was his job. He wasn't getting paid for it. In fact, he knew this was probably,
he was a suspect.
He was a suspect. He was wounded. Like the guy told him, if you move around too much, you're going to bleed out and die. And like, he knew he was walking into danger, and it wasn't for a job. It was because he loved that little girl. But yeah, they kept telling him, I don't know. This is just my job. It wasn't personal, but it was personal to him. And I'm telling you, it's actual love and it's what God wants for men and women. But for men is say, no, this is personal. Me providing for my family, the job I do, the time we spend as a family. Like, this isn't a job. It's not an obligation. This is personal. This is real, and it means something. And yeah, I noticed that too, that it switched. That these are that's what being a villain is. He started in the beginning just being a professional. He's like, I am your bodyguard. Yes. Stay back, stay away. But it's interesting how you talk. How many people look at Christianity and their faith as, I'm a professional. Like, I'm a professional Christian. I don't mean like you, like in a ministry where that actually, some of them do, is even worse. Yeah. But I go to church. I go to church in the morning. I go to church in the evening. I go to church on Wednesday night because that's what I do. That's what I do. That's how I get to heaven. That's how I develop a relationship with God. Yeah. Duty and obligation is the big thing. And how much life and transformation happens out of that. I'm a professional. No, that attitude. You become a villain. That's what the movie showed. He was a villain in the beginning. Yeah. That's why he said, I'm the lost sheep. Super unlikable. No save the cat moment. There's a little bit of one. It is a save the cat moment because as broken as he is, there's some sense of morality in him to say, do you think God will forgive us? He's not without a conscience, right? So that line was written on purpose. Just like the I'm the sheep that got lost, and he can quote the Bible, and then she sees the mom sees the Bible, and she's like, you read that sometimes. Does it help? Sometimes. But he doesn't choose the Bible. It isn't until he starts to realize his purpose that he puts down, in a very obvious symbolic scene, right? He puts down the bottle and picks up the Bible. And but that's how you become a villain. Like, that's the Old Testament. That's where the Jews were wrong. The Jews that killed Jesus thought they were doing their duty and obligation, but he was questioning their heart. And there's a difference. And he kept questioning their heart and their motivation. And they kept pushing him away. No, this is our job. And you don't have the right education, and you don't have the right, well, you can't, who are you? I'm God. Well, then that means by obligation, we have to kill you, right? And so that's how you become a villain, is when you do these things by duty and obligation. And it's the core of it is always relationship. Core of it is always relational. And I like what you said about the hand of God. See, he didn't believe. Here's what he didn't believe. And here's where the hand of God in the movie comes in, which is kind of a writing no-no. You're not supposed to have the hand of God in a movie, right? But they did it, and I think it worked. Because this is what he believed. This was a lie. One of the lies that he believed is he didn't deserve a second chance. He didn't deserve a second chance. Do you think God will ever forgive us for what we've done? He didn't believe he could have redemption. He didn't believe that was possible. He is the sheep, not like, well, maybe I can be a found sheep. No, this is who I am. I know the Bible. I know I'm done. I know I did too much bad stuff. But then in that moment when that bullet doesn't lie, The truth is he gets another shot. No pun intended. He gets another chance. He gets another chance. Maybe I can have another chance. Maybe God does care about me. Maybe. And that little ink of light, that little spark of light that he sees in that, he calls his friend. What? Have you ever seen this happen? Have you ever seen a dead man come to life, right? Sort of like the Bible, right? Like, have you ever seen anything like this? No. But it could be, but then he makes it, but his friend makes it more meaningful. The bullet doesn't lie. Oh, there's another truth here at work and they do a great job, in my opinion. Like, this movie would not have worked to me if they hadn't taken the time to develop his relationship with Peeta. Like, he's teaching her how not to be afraid. That's what fathers do. They train their children. They teach them. They encourage their gifts, their dreams. This is what fathers do. And they show that. They show him doing that over and over again, answering her questions about history, about life, about all sorts of things. And so it's not a short amount of the movie. But I don't think the brutality would have worked without that sort of sense of he loved her that much.
I want to play this clip of, like you mentioned, the training, because what shifts her from sitting in the back seat to sitting in the front seat is the coaching. Like, he went to a swim meet. He's like, you're the fastest in the water, but the slowest off the block. So what do we need to do? We need to get you faster off the block. So he does this after mom and dad go away. They go travel. They do a lot of business travel. So you see the next scene is them in a pool. He's got 2 bricks, rubbing them together to simulate the firing of the starter pistol.
Concentrating. Eyes are closed. What happened?
I flinched.
You flinched. The gunshot holds no fear. Say it.
The gunshot holds no fear.
The gunshot holds no fear. Say it.
The gunshot holds no fear.
Louder.
The gunshot holds no fear.
Louder.
The gunshot holds no fear.
That's good. But you welcome the sound. In fact, it's the sound that sets you free. You are a prisoner on this block until that sound sets you free. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you set?
And I don't know. I just love that concept. Mm-hmm. Like, you are a prisoner on this block until the gunshot sets you free.
Yeah.
Till that thing that you're afraid of, you actually look forward to and anticipate, and it enables your release, right? The gunshot holds no fear.
Yeah. I don't know exactly where it was in that whole scene. I think it was in that scene where he says there's no such thing as tough. There's trained. Yeah. And again, this is why discipleship is key in our salvation, because yes, we're saved, but you're not just already tough in the kingdom and the spiritual battles that you go through. You have to be trained in order to have the victory in the end. You have to go through the training, and training happens when nobody's looking. Right? I mean, every training montage we see, right? I mean, although in Rocky 2, I guess the people were running with him, but a lot of the training montages are nobody's around, or just the coach, or just
that's only at the end.
That's only
getting strong now.
If you're listening to this podcast and you want to go and have some really self-indulgent days of streaming and binging did we do all 4? Didn't we do all 4 Rocky
We did the
movies?
First 4 Rocky back to back.
Yeah, we did. And our audience really grew because of that. But all that to say is,
it didn't.
I love that because her biological father was a false father. He was her biological father, but he saw from her what he could get out of her. And this is really important. Love isn't trying to profit off of you.
Right.
That's not Jesus. That wasn't Paul. That's not God. It is for your good and will sacrifice for your good. But Mark Antony, who was like a singer, he had like 2 hits or whatever, and he's in this movie all of a sudden, but he wants her to give up swimming and do the piano thing. Not because it's what she wants or what's best for her, but because this is a great, rich people do this. Like it's all image. It's all of that. And so he's wrapped up in the things that are false and lies. And yet here is this other man who is not her biological father, but he is actually treating her like a father. He is actually saying, I will train you. And he's passing on the things he's learned. There's no such thing as tough. There's trained. There's no such thing. Like the shot sets you free, whatever. Like, I mean, he's teaching her the basic principles without teaching. It's not the professional, right? He's not teaching her how to be a hitman, but he's teaching her the principles that he's learned in his life. Like, this is how I got successful at this, and this is how you'll be successful at your dream. And that's what fathers do, man. Fathers do that. And they recognize this is the kid's dream. This is their gift. This is who they are as an individual. And I'm just going to invest in that. And that's where you get that ultimate comment from the Madre, which is, so it was a powerful part of the movie. It's, kind of a telegraph theme of a line in the script, but it's there.
Well, and what he did was he took what made her afraid and made her not afraid of it anymore. Again, what do fathers do? And and like you said, when the first thing in the movie says one kidnapping happens every 60 minutes in Latin America, you can pretty much assume that the key kid in the movie is gonna be kidnapped.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's sort of like Taken. The girl's gonna get, taken.
Right.
So like you mentioned, then it goes to that scene where they go to the swim meet. She's been practicing hours in the pool. By the end, all the house staff are out there cheering her on.
I love that.
Encouraging her.
That's great.
And there you are with your community plug there.
It's there.
Yeah, I know. It's obvious.
And it wasn't rich people. It was the servant class.
Right.
That loved her. And remember, when she gives him a tour in the beginning, she introduces him to all the staff. She doesn't treat them like servants.
There's Manuel. He's the cook.
Yeah. So
anyway. The gardener. And
really
but then he goes, so they go to the swim meet and he sees the Madre again. And I don't have the clip because it's basically this line.
Yeah. Right.
He's like, oh, the mom and dad aren't here. Almost really apologizing for them. And she says, today you are her father.
Yeah.
And that shifts. And it's so cool because the way they shoot it as she goes, and it's a, down and back swim meet. But you see, so as you're watching the cameras going along the pool, you can see Creasy stalking the edge of the pool, walking down as she's swimming and then walking back with her. So he's there with her and waiting at the finish line, and she jumps because she had never won.
Yeah.
She's like, I've never come in better than third. Maybe you are slow.
Maybe she laughs at him. Well, and here's why the line, as much as it's a tell, here's why the line worked, is because what we've already seen in the scene, what they've shown us in the scene is his love for her and how invested he is in her success. We see it. He's nervous. He's like a dad, right? He's nervous. He's like, like you can tell he's like one of those dads who's like, oh, I really want her to win, but I don't want to show her that I want her. I don't want to pressure. Like we do that all the time as dads. And we cheer our kids on. We empower our kids. That's what he did. He empowered her. And the movie does a great job. The writing in the movie does a great job making us fall in love with this little girl, right?
Oh yeah.
And here's the thing is that there's this theme within a lot of movies. You got Batman and Robin. You got The Witcher with the girl that he's got to save. I don't know if you've seen The Witcher. Mandalorian. And there's this theme. It's a literal ancient theme where there is a soldier, overly masculine figure. Like the man is an overly masculine,
uber tough guy.
He's an uber tough guy, but being an uber tough guy is out of balance. It's twisted, right? He needs the feminine or the creative. He needs
nurturing,
a nurturing side of him. And here's why this is an ancient universal theme that I want to make sure that we make clear is that men want to nurture children. It is not something that's just for women. Now, men are more masculine and they can be more driven to succeed and fight and do all that sort of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a reason why God, not Adam, God saw Adam and said, it's not good that it's just Adam. I've given him purpose. He has me. Like, it was perfect. Adam hadn't even sinned. There was nothing wrong with Adam other than he needs a partner to give him another element to help him fulfill his purpose. And that's what you see with Creasy. He was so out of balance that he was broken. But his love for her actually gave him back his real purpose. So then when she's about to be kidnapped, like he really does save her. Like, it's only the kind of horror movie dumb chick thing that she does. She runs back into it, right? Like, she could have gotten away.
Yeah, but she runs because she sees him get hit.
But she loves him, so she comes back and all that sort of stuff. So, like, he sees it all happening, right? His training it's clicks on, and he sees the police being in the wrong place, and he sees the kidnapping about to happen. But my point in all that is that I really want to encourage men, if you're listening to this, that there is something manly about loving your children and empowering them and training them and spending time with them and finding out what their gifts are. That's not, I don't think anybody thinks consciously that, oh, that's just my wife's job. But I think men a lot of times feel so inadequate at it, like we're going to fail or something. I think we feel inadequate with it but it actually is something we long for. And all of these movies show that. There's a reason why The Mandalorian dug way down into this. He takes off his helmet. Spoiler alert, Mandalorian. You know, like he's not supposed to take off his helmet, but he takes it off so he can.
This is the way.
So he can see, so he can be face to face with the child, right? I mean, like there's something in that moves us as men, and it moves women too, because women, man, I'm going to tell you guys something. Women fall more in love with you when you hold your baby. It's not that. Yeah, I mean, yes, women want us to be tough, and women like that we're strong, and they do. But I'm telling you, when you are gentle with a newborn, and they can see how much you love this baby, I'm telling you, there's something about it for women. Like they are all in.
And we talk often about the warrior heart and the warrior mentality. I mean, we've just done, Terminator and Act of Valor and all these warish movies. And we look at God as the warrior and all these ideas, and the God of heavenly armies, as one of the translations describes him. But the other side of that, and many of the prophecies, and even Jesus described him this way, is as a mother hen, or as a nursing mother. It's like, could I have weaned you and nursed you and taught you to walk and then forget about you?
Right.
And the God describes himself as a nurturer, as a comforter. I mean, Jesus describes the Holy Spirit as a comforter. And Jesus said, "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, if you had just come to me, I would have wrapped you under my wings like a mother hen covers her chicks."
Yep.
And this nurturing heart of God is something that we don't attach with ourselves very often. And I think that when we look at the tools of the enemy being the culture, what do? You turn on Law and Order SVU and it's look, another pedophile,
right?
Another man molesting kids. And I've felt that as a father taking my kids to the playground, like they're playing around and, like you talked about going to a conference and making googly eyes at a baby and the mom getting uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And, I'm sitting there on a bench watching my kids. Kid comes up to me and I'm making faces at the kid, talking in funny voices. And the mom comes up in a panic to take him away from a possible predator. And I was like, kids just make faces at me. Like we'll be out. Like this happens a lot. I have a goofy face. But this idea that we are threats, men are threats, should be kept at a distance. Our kids almost need to be protected from fathers is just something that's permeated a lot of society and a lot of the culture that shows men as possible predators that need to be away from, which makes it even more difficult for us to express playfulness with children, to express, as you mentioned, that pure love, because that is important.
Yeah.
Peta needed that. She needed a true father because her own father actually put her in harm's way.
Right. As we see, we see later. The reason why this is a universal theme is because just like we see in The Mandalorian and all of these shows and movies where they have this sort of element, that the nurturing element in the man, in the warrior, gives purpose and meaning to being a warrior. It actually redefines and redeems what a warrior is, which is who he's supposed to be. And the reason why this is so let's look at it as a universal theme and we long for it. And that is why it is so upsetting when men rape children. That's why it's so upsetting, because it is the exact opposite of what they were put on earth to do. It's the exact opposite of what we long for in fathers. And our culture needs fathers. It needs mothers too, but it needs fathers. It needs fathers to stand up and say, this is the right way. And we love you and we're for you. I'm going to invest, because now, and going back to just, okay, maybe you're not a policeman or you're not an assassin. Okay. But instead of finding your meaning in the next promotion at work, think of your job as in a redemptive way, as a way to, as that's not your main goal, is to get the promotion at work. That's not where you find your identity. When you find your identity in the nurturing of and raising of this person who can't give back to you other than they love you, right? I mean, think about how weird it is that a kid draws a picture and it's awful. Right? A kid will draw a picture. They can't spell and they'll write you a note and they can't spell, but you don't care. You will treat it like a treasure.
My youngest once made like a Teenage Mutant Ninja turkey. I mean, we were like seriously worried about him one day, and it's like, wait, it's awesome. Yeah, we put it on the fridge, of course.
You put it on the fridge.
We were like, we might need to do a psych eval. I think he had cut his hands off or something. It was like, yep, the Teenage Mutant Ninja turkey.
And here's the thing. Like you said, God is called in the Old Testament. It's one of the reasons I love the New Living Translation. You see, they say it over and over again, because in the Old Testament, the Lord, in like whatever the other translations, it actually translates into the Lord of Heaven's armies. So that's who God is, right? But at the same time, here's what God does. When I do stuff because I love God, he puts it on his fridge too. Like, do you really think he needs my stuff? You think he needs me to serve him? Do you think he needs me to sing him a song or write him a book or teach it? Like, he doesn't need that. And it's foolishness of preaching, right? It's incomplete. It's misspelled in the, it's probably not perfect theology all the time. Whatever it is. But when he gets it because I love him, when he sees what I did because I'm committed to him and I love him and I want to make him happy, he puts it on his fridge too. And that's what, and that's what we see in Creasy. That's what we see. And it redeems. And with us, it's going to redeem the work we do during the day. Because here's what men are really good at is separating things. Men are very good at compartmentalizing, way better than women. Women, just brain wise, everything's all mixed in together, right? But for men, we can have boxes, right? I don't know if you've seen that. Have you seen that video where the guy's like, he has a nothing box, like he's got a work box, and he's got a home box, and he's got a kid's box, he's got it's like a waffle, like, or whatever. He's got boxes. And at one point he told his wife, I have a nothing box, because she doesn't believe him when she says, what are you thinking about? And he says, nothing. And she's like, she doesn't believe him. No. And guys understand this. Like, I do. I have a nothing box. There are some times when I'm legitimately thinking about nothing. It's just empty. But we're great at compartmentalizing. But what the nurturing does is it makes us whole and complete and keeps us from segmenting our life, because that's evil. I'm telling you, that's not integrity. Integrity isn't having a box for every little thing. Integrity is looking at the whole as your life holistically. And that's what nurturing a child does. And that's why we long for it, because we want to feel whole. As men, we want that. And then what that means is, like I said, that makes the job we do during the day have more meaning. And we become kinder at work, and or whatever it is, right? I mean, like, it makes us more manly and more Christ-like when we learn how to do that. So there it is.
Well, and so we get to the point of the movie, and I mean, sort of the arc is relatively short compared to the length of the movie, because we see Creasy's life transformed by PETA.
He even dresses differently, by the way. Did you notice that? He starts dressing differently.
I didn't.
Yeah, anyway, go ahead. He starts dressing in like tropical shirts and brighter
Dad
colors. Yeah, like it's a very movie thing to do. When the character transforms, you dress him differently. He looks different. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the challenges of doing the clips for this movie is it was much more show, don't tell.
Yeah, it was.
Like, it didn't tell you a lot of stuff about him, but it showed it very well. And one of the themes, and I wrote this down, the power of love to heal broken hearts.
Yeah.
Because early on, she talks about, I love you, Creasy Bear. Like I said, in her journal, it's written 100 times or something. And it's her love that transforms him, that enables him to be who he needs to be. And the reason, Christopher Walken's character talked about it in, like you said, his little monologue speech of when she was kidnapped, like what she meant, she showed him how to live again. And love shows you how to live again.
Good.
But you have to receive it. Like, he could have left her in the back seat. He could have not engaged with her at the swim meets or helping with homework. He could have kept shutting her out.
Yep.
But he, like you mentioned, he knew that his life was incomplete. He knew that his life wasn't whole. And so when she got taken, when she got kidnapped and presumed dead, his entire focus, his entire energy was to exact revenge, exact payback. Kill, what was it? He said, kill everyone that
involved or
was
profited.
Involved. Yeah. Anybody who knew anything about this is going down because that's what he's good at. Right. And it was interesting that what he was most ashamed of was what was needed most to exact justice. And he's been trained for exactly this work. But as you mentioned, his work has been transformed because he's not doing it. You know, he's like a counterinsurgent trainer, operative, taking down governments or setting up new governments or whatever. But now he becomes a man with nothing to lose because what was his life has been taken from him. And so now he wants to go and go after the people that did it. He can't be manipulated. He can't be coerced. There's nothing like, he's like, no, I want PETA back. You can't offer that. So you're going to die.
Right.
And so as we land the plane, I got to figure out another phrase to use as we bring this to a close. But as we like, there's a big point here. And we are going to end with playing the clip on the bridge because I think that's important. But you're like, yes, this is a great movie. Yes, I see this. I see what you're saying. And in many ways, we attach to Creasy and we need to ask ourselves, where have I given up? Where have I turned to kind of soothing and relief versus actually restoration and healing? Where am I using duty and obligation? Where have I climbed the wrong ladders? Like I said, all those, mid-age crisis questions. But in order to do that, I think we need to associate a little bit with PETA. Because as we were just talking about the God that we see in the Old Testament, the Lord of angel armies, the heavenly armies, and the nurturing mother nursing us at her breast. And this idea that we've been kidnapped. And what we need isn't a better job. It isn't well-behaved kids. It isn't a removal of cancer or disease or whatever. We need rescue. We need healing. In this situation, we need love to intervene. And that's what it takes to both rescue us from the places that hold us prison, the things that we do that we can't change, and offer us purpose and a hope and point us in the right direction. So I'm going to play the clip at the very end. Creasy has been shot like 100 times. He is not long for this world. He finally connects with the guy, Daniel, who's the voice, who's the mastermind behind all the kidnappings. He still has thought PETA was dead until he talked to Daniel. Every step along the way, he's killed everyone. But when he realizes that PETA is still alive, PETA can still be rescued, he stops killing. He doesn't kill the brother. He doesn't kill the wife. He brings them along. He trades himself for her. A life for a life, right? And so they meet on the bridge. PETA hugs Creasy. Creasy knows where he's going to keep going. He's not going home with PETA. He's going home with Daniel to probably suffer all the things that probably were intended for him that he did to the people along the way. But there's this interchange on the bridge that is, the emotional climax of the movie.
You all right? I didn't hurt you? Hi. All right, your mother's waiting for you. She's right down here on the end of the bridge. Okay, you go home.
All right. Where are you going?
I'm going home, too. Going to Blue Bayou. Oh, hey. I got something for you. I got the last number, too.
I love you, Gracie. And you love me. me, don't you?
Yes, I do. With all my heart, Peter, go.
One of the important things about this, and I've kind of already said it, is that the love of a child is pure. But you see, a child needs protection. It needs nurturing. And so therefore, to hurt that child is evil, right? We know that. And it's true. Stuff has happened that's been bad, right? Molestations and rapes and all sorts of awful things that men have done. But the key is that when we love a child that can't give back to us, and so loving a child is a Christ-like love. That is a Christ-like thing, because God gives to people who cannot give back to him. Nobody can give anything back to God. And Christ talked about giving things to people who can't give back, that was doing it unto these people was like doing it to him. If you feed someone who's hungry, right? If they're hungry, they don't have food to give back to you, right? If you give clothes to those who are naked, they're naked. They don't have clothes. They can't give it back to you. If you go visit someone in prison, then like people in prison can't visit me back, right? You're giving to people who can't give back to you. In Christianity, we do that because we love them and we're not looking for any profit from that person. That's ultimate love. That is agape love. That is the love of God. And so what we see at the end, which is beautiful that this movie does this. And again, Denzel Washington is an amazing actor, but he is a man of faith. And so you see that theme through a lot of his movies. I don't know how on purpose this was, but I feel it was probably a little bit on purpose. He literally gives his life for her redemption. He's not giving his life for his own sake. He's not giving his life for a political cause. He's not giving his life for any other reason. And he is satisfied with that. He's satisfied with giving his life for the redemption of this person. And that is also Christ-like. So we see a huge Christ-like theme that runs through this movie. And again, obviously a lot of guys will say, I would die for my kids. I would die for my wife or whatever, but will you live for them? Right. That's always the question. Like, what are you going to do? Okay. We're not asking you to die for them today. Right.
But you're yelling about taking out the trash. Really?
Right.
Takes you 5 seconds.
Right.
I know because I do that. So,
but the question is all connected. The same heart that would die for her to redeem her is the same heart that will empower, encourage, train, listen, teach. You know, in the Old Testament, I think it's in Deuteronomy, and in the Old Testament, in there somewhere in the first 5 books, somewhere it is written that, you know, in the Mosaic Law, it talks about fathers teaching their children. When you're walking, when you're working. In other words, the whole idea of fatherhood, even in the Old Testament law, was that you were hanging out with your kids and the kids were living life with you. And while that's happening, you get to teach them. And so we kind of see that. And I love that sort of theme and that arc, that not only is his work redeemed and given meaning, but we see that very Christ-like sense of loving her when it doesn't profit him, and literally giving his life at the end as Christ did for us on the cross, knowing that something good, like there was a reason he did it. He right. wasn't just losing his life for no reason. He wasn't at one point he was trying to kill himself, right? That would have been for nothing, right? This isn't suicide. Right. This is trading my life for another, for their good. And I love that Christ-like element to it.
This last weekend, one of my best friends, his dad died. And so we went to the funeral, and to hear the stories of the life that this man lived, the life that he lived. We talk about, you were just talking about teaching, whether you're working, whether you're walking, you're teaching. Teaching's not always a prepared lesson or a seminar or a lecture. Teaching is, how do you treat the people around you? What do you love? What is your purpose? And for Jerry, he loved people and he loved God.
Mm.
He hosted church in his house and he welcomed everybody and he mentored people and he loved well.
Mm.
And you don't need to show a lesson. You don't need to, there's no PowerPoint with that. It's in our example and the way that we lived. And how do we know that Creasy loved PETA?
Right.
Because of what he did, because of his coaching, because he helped her with his homework, because he rescued her.
Yep.
And what is in 1 John 4, we know this, that we love because God loved us. And God showed how much he loved us by sending his one and only son to the world that we might have life.
Right.
And this is love. This is real love, pure love, as we've been talking about. Not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his son to be a sacrifice.
Mm.
Like we were PETA. And Jesus was Creasy, who waged war on the enemy, on the evil, look at how the demons responded when Jesus showed up.
Right.
Pretty sure he had some bombs and butts. Spiritually speaking. But he came as a sacrifice so that we might have freedom, that we might have life. Not one day pie in the sky,
right?
Angels on harps on clouds. Today. We can see God, that we can experience the nurturing and the comfort, the presence of God, so that we can look and just like Peter's like, I love you, Creasy.
Yeah.
And you love me. And I know you love me too.
And I know you love me too. He goes, yeah, I do.
And to walk in the truth of that.
Yeah.
That's how we can find peace and joy and contentment in this world, as you mentioned. That's how we can find our true north.
Yep.
Our purpose in this life.
Yep.
So this has been Paul McDonald and Britt Mooney talking about Man on Fire.
Man on Fire.
We hope you enjoyed it. If you really liked it, check us out. We have a Patreon page. You can support our podcast on patreon.com. On patreon.com /Men at the Movies. I had to redo it for the voice cracking. And I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you join us next time here on the Men at the Movies podcast.
Something inside has been awakened. I can no longer be who I was before. But if I am no longer who I was, who am I to be?